Progress is not achieved by luck or chance, but by deliberate and persistent efforts. These words by Greek philosopher Epictetus resonate deeply today as we initiate our first discussion, keynote, Unlock Progress. Our upcoming conversation will center around solutions that can facilitate a more equitable society and to enable women to soar to unfathomable heights. And to discuss this, we have Sherine John, VP and Credit India leader at Synchrony. Sherine is an experienced analytics consultant and data scientist with over 16 years of global work history, primarily serving leading financial servicing clients. Her expertise lies in predictive analytics, strategy and optimization, and new and emerging decisioning platforms. In recent years, Sherine's focus has gravitated towards integrating alternative data, cutting-edge computing, and unbiased algorithms into effective credit decision-making processes. Beyond her professional pursuits, Sherine finds joy in teaching, exploring new destinations, and honing her baking skills. May I please welcome on stage none other than Sherine John. Welcome, Sherine. Over to you. And if anyone has any questions, we're going to have a few minutes towards the end of her talk to pick up those questions. Please leave your questions in the Q&A section right below. Thank you. All yours, Sherine.
Thank you, Shana. Lined up in the morning. So, I want to start by actually talking a little bit about my career trajectory and, just the whole concept of unlocking progress and potential that women bring to the table. It's just that a lot of times we just choose to or fail to see that progress. So, just by way of introduction, when I started my career 16 years ago in the field of analytics, it was a sector that was predominantly dominated by men. I mean, anything related to science, engineering, mathematics continues to be that way even today. So, just getting into a sector that was predominantly men and then trying to, navigate the trajectory and being where I am today, I must admit wasn't easy. But I have to also give it away to my colleagues, a lot of them men as much as women, who actually recognized the potential, the talent, and nurtured the path or the trajectory that I could bring to the table. So, well, as much as we have all these unconscious biases, etc., we're also cognizant that there are a lot of people rooting for us, a lot of companies who put the right set of measures in place. Synchrony is definitely a classic example of it. But that said, none of it takes away from us the fact that it is hard for women. And, all of us in recent times have heard about this term diversity, equity, and inclusion, and most of it from the perspective of wanting to get women in leadership. When I go back and think about it myself, to me, women in leadership is possible when you have women in the workforce. I mean, you don't just lift and shift someone into leadership, you grow them into a leadership position. And therefore, women in workforce is pivotal. And, all things said and done, this isn't an ethical question. This isn't about doing the right thing for women. This is about economic prosperity and equitable growth that nations can achieve, organizations can achieve. Because if we cannot break away from a standard perspective that we bring to the table, which is what I believe men bring to the table, we'll never be able to view a problem statement with an alternate lens and provide a solution to it, which is why diversity is important. So as a first, I think all the organizations, all of us have to understand that if there is that emphasis on getting women to the workforce, it's less about empowering, it is about empowering women, but it's less of an ethical question. It's more of a economic prosperity question. We need that perspective more than ever before, given how dynamically our world is changing. But if you look at the statistics, it's going to tell you something fundamentally different. If you look at head of nations, there are about 195 head of nations, only 19 of them are women. If you look at Fortune 500 companies, no more than 10% of them are led by women. If you look at diversity in most corporate organizations in India, it's no more than 15 to 20% at leadership levels. Why does that happen? What's not working out? We did mention we want women in the workforce, right? Yes, we do get women in the workforce. There are places where at junior levels, we get about 50% representation of women, although Indian governments labor force participation for women would tell you that roughly 33% of the women participate in labor force. But it's about 50% for a lot of the industry that I am privy to at entry levels. But then that does not really translate to leadership levels. And we really need to understand why that happens. All of us have heard about unconscious bias, which just tells you that because we have certain leadership styles or archetypes which are defined by men, which require people to behave in a certain way or exhibit a certain type of character, and women are different. They're just different. They have a different set of traits and characteristics and a different way of negotiating something that they bring to the table. We tend to dismiss it off and say that's less leader-like, you're too emotional. I think that's a statement I've heard a lot in my career. Or, you got to put your head above your heart in matters of, the corporate. Well, how do you know that I'm not using my head? That's because we've stereotyped a lot of this stuff. A lot of the archetypes that we have in our mind, it really is about, leadership styles. You're dominant, you're collaborative, you're X, Y, Z, but all of that is an outcome of the data points we have collected over the years, and those data points relate to men who dominate the industry. It isn't about the women. And when women display a different style, a different character, a different approach, it's considered less leader-like. I think resolving any problem requires that we acknowledge the problem in the first place. And I think that's where we are probably lacking a little bit as an organization. We're not willing to call this out as it stands. I love Neha's introduction, and she mentioned Sheryl Sandberg in the mix. And, one of the quotes that Sheryl Sandberg actually once said, and that was a study done by the Harvard Business Review, it said that likability quotient and success is negatively correlated for women. It's positively correlated for men. Needless to say, when you're getting a promotion, especially and with all the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of people will come and tell you, you're getting that promotion because you're a woman, because we need to improve our diversity numbers at the top. Well, you can feel disheartened about it, or you can just tell them that, you know what, too bad. So the reason I'm giving this example today is for each of you to recognize that there are going to be barriers. There is unconscious bias in the society. People will always tend to pull you down. Pay parity is a classic example of it. International Labor Organization's data says that women are still paid 20% less than men if you put all groups together. There is that discrimination, that unconscious bias, societal biases that manifest itself. But each of us have a responsibility to keep forging ahead despite what the society tells us. We tend to give up too soon. We know that, again, there's another stats that says that women do pretty more than half the household chores, more than 2/3 of childcare responsibilities, and a full-time job, which tells me that a woman's doing 3 jobs, whereas most men are doing just a single job, which is in office. So clearly the stress and the burnout levels are a lot higher for women than it is for men. But it is also imperative that women talk about it, right? They go and tell their employers that they need this flexibility. They need a certain level of support from the organization. Speaking up is important. Asking for what you believe is important. Because if we don't put our point of view out there, believe me, no one else would, because there isn't anyone else to actually do that. You've seen the distribution of people in the organization, and we all reckon the fact that the representation of women who need that support is less. So all of us have a responsibility to go seek what we deserve. The other important aspect I want to draw each of your attention to is the fact that, when you're looking at your career, you need to raise your hand and seek opportunities for growth. A lot of the times we think that, oh, well, there is no role, so how can I raise my hand and ask for a promotion? Whereas you will see invariably, and I lead a team of 150 odd people, my men always reach out to me asking for promotions. And my women think that actually there is no opportunity. So how do I even go and ask for something that does not exist? But men do. And by virtue of that, a lot of times what happens is the organizations tend to carve out a role for men. Well, they ask for it, they're persistent about it, they're after you for it with their life. And so it happens, Always remember and understand that let's not assume things. Let's not give up till we actually give up. ask for what you believe you deserve. And I'm pretty sure there is always a carve out that can happen, that can work out. Us making a lot of assumptions tend to play its part in pulling us down a lot of times. In another example, I'll give you two examples from my career as well that I've seen. There's a girl who got married recently, and she walks up to me and says that if I'm not cutting the promotion this year, I'm not getting it for the next 3 years. So I said, how do you get to that conclusion? And she said, you know what, because I'd want to go ahead and plan my family next year. So that's 9 months out. And then, another 6 months out, and then another 6 months out because I have to spend time with childcare. I said, you've written off 3 years of your life. You've made that assumption. You don't have to make that assumption. We still have to find a way and ask our employer, I'm going on maternity leave, I'm going the family way. What can you do to continue supporting my career through this journey and ensuring that I don't have to face a setback because I decided to pursue my personal priorities as much as I'm pursuing my professional priorities. Nature has a way of balancing things out, right? Women are the ones who are going to produce babies at the end of the day, but that can't be held against them for their career progression. More than anything else, just because they're out for that 9 + 6 month window does not mean that that perspective that they bring to the table is not valuable anymore. As I said, perhaps that idea is going to steer the organization further than the 10 other ideas that a lot of our men have put on the table. So recognize your strength, understand your opportunity areas, and work towards them. But most importantly, I think what's important is asking for what you believe you deserve, which I think we tend to shy away from. And yes, everything about the likability quotient, we can turn that around if we have enough women, basically fulfilling leadership responsibilities and bigger responsibilities in the organization. So keep doing what you believe you're best at doing would be my advice. Seek the flexibility that you deserve. Understand this isn't an ethical question. I mean, this is an ethical question, but this question is much more about sustainable development and economic prosperity. So no one's doing a favor on you. Understand that first. Your perspectives are going to help the organization prosper, and hence that is needed. And you got to always speak from that point of view. A lot of times, again, I've seen with my experience that the points you choose to speak from, the viewpoint that you take, define the trajectory of your career. And you would see a lot of confidence and a lot of I need it kind of a thing coming from the other gender, but we tend to pull back. And that's not the area we really want to go into. Everything is important. None of this is to say that your personal priorities, your personal responsibilities are not important, not relevant. This is to tell you that as you define the trajectory for yourself, as you think about contributing to the formal sector, the workforce, understand you're doing this because the nation can benefit from it. And you're doing this because financial independence is important for every woman. And I want all of us to recognize that too. A lot of times, I think we're brought up in a society where, the onus or the whole notion of success, corporate success, professional success is associated with men, and personal success or running a household, domestic success is associated with women. That has to change. It's about change your thought process. Both successes are equally important to both sides, both genders. It isn't about one or the other. And the moment we recognize that, I think a lot will change. As an organization, as I said, we have to admit, we will have to come to terms with the fact that 80% of the people making decisions are actually men. Very hard for them to see alternate perspectives because they've been there, done that, 25, 30 odd years of their life. And it is going to be sometimes hard to change their mindset and change their perspective. But that said, nothing should stop us from making that assumption and not putting our point forward. Let's not make assumptions. Let's still logic it out, reason it out. And I'm sure we're all going to get to a better place as an organization, as well as, as a world, we'll be at a better place. I know someone once said that if women were ruling the world, there really wouldn't be a war. per se. I don't know how true that's going to be. But that said, I do believe that women have a very pragmatic way of dealing with things, which does not entail too much of microaggression, which I have seen at workplace, by the way. And a lot of it is, comes from the alternate gender, but microaggressions can lead to a lot of things. We know that too. So, world might just be a better place. Companies might be a better place. And I want each of you in this call to recognize that you're first of all in this call because you're serious about your career. You want to see what can be worked out. You're participating in a fair, so give yourself a pat on the back because you're someone who's made that commitment to come back into the workforce or join the workforce as a first-time person or even the first person from a generation to make a difference. So each of you need to congratulate yourself for having taken that first step in the right direction. Always remember, you need to be a judge of your own strengths, of your character, and what you're capable of doing. Relying too much on someone else's validation and endorsement in an industry that's inherently biased will not serve anyone's purpose. So always recognize your strengths, your development areas, what you deserve, and what you should ask for. I keep quoting this example, but just a few months ago, I was in a conversation with a colleague, and I was kind of just enlisting some things about how some people can do better in the organization. And this colleague of mine asked me, so what do you think this person thinks about you? And my immediate impulsive response, I must say, was, I don't know and I don't care. But then when I went back and thought about it, I thought that was actually the right response. I'm not here to win a popularity contest. None of us need to be there to win a popularity contest. We're all here to get the work done in the right spirit, to be honest and true to who we are, what we can bring to the table. And sometimes being honest and being true to yourself would be perceived as being aggressive, being rude, not being, collaborative, etc. But that is a mindset shift that has to happen to people who are stereotyping these behaviors. That is not for you to change yourself or the way you present your information, your approach, or your asks. That is entirely for the world on the other side to change how they perceive some of these things. And that change will happen when more and more and more people bring their viewpoint to the table and refuse to be participating in a popularity contest where we are trying to keep everyone happy. Because in our pursuit to keep everyone else happy, we're going to compromise our own. So, you know what? Challenges will exist. Making sure that you seek the flexibility you deserve. You don't leave till you actually have to, which is the example I gave about, women making assumptions that I won't be able to cut into a promotion for the next 3 years, etc. Don't make assumptions. Always have an open and honest line of conversation. Encourage, question and challenge perceptions and stereotypes. That's important too, because if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it for us. And at the end of the day, always remember that all of these organizations, forums, they are here today to support each of us. And women on this call, women at leadership levels, women who are organizers of this event, understand that women have to support other women progress in their careers, because that's the only way we can actually expedite the positive change. Women champion other women is something that I keep telling in my company, in my organization. And by the way, it's a beautiful example, but Synchrony does that pretty wonderfully. I would love for each of us to recognize that and do it too. Women champion other women. Share your recipe for success with other women. Everyone's recipe is going to be different. It can't be one size fits all. But whatever your recipe is, share it with other women so they can tread on the path of success. And I've spoken for about 15-20 minutes. So I'm going to pause right here. I know we're well ahead of time with respect to our schedule, but I'd love to take any questions that the group may have.
Thanks, Sherine. That was a really encouraging talk. And yes, we do have questions. So I'm going to pick them up.
Yeah.
The first question is by an attendee who asks, do companies still hire women if they have no experience, but say at the age of 42, still has a dream to work in the IT field? What should my approach be while seeking opportunities?
Right. So your approach to that would be to bring to the table every qualification that you possess with yourself, which could be, you've of course graduated. If you're 42, you may have graduated about 2 decades ago, right? But then between then and now, was there an upskilling process that you followed? Was there anything that you learned which would help you qualify the job that has been posted? So to the first question, yes, absolutely. Organizations are more than happy to take anyone into their remit who's a first-time job seeker, irrespective of their age. Age is not a barrier to making things happen. I can give 100 examples of where people have gone to a different trajectory after the age of 60 and made a big fortune for themselves. So 42, frankly, is not going to be a limiting aspect with respect to building a career in the corporate. That said, I think what will be important for each of us, and this is not about women, this is everyone. The world is changing at a rapid pace. The speed of innovation is changing at a rapid pace. So it is important that we are upskilling ourselves. So spend some time understanding the nuances, join these forums. This is a great opportunity for you to understand what's going on, upskill yourself, and you can do it through open source. You don't have to necessarily go and do another graduation, but prepare yourself a little bit and then go ahead and apply. I'm sure organizations will be more than happy to take you in. And always remember, if you have managed your home in the last 2 decades, make sure you're putting your skills from that experience as well on your resume. Managing a home is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. You're managing egos, you're managing personalities, you're managing budgets, you're taking care of kids, elders, everything. Huge skill. There is a lot of resilience, patience, every leadership skill we speak about, you've nurtured that. Do not underestimate it. Put that on your resume in terms of your leadership skills. As for the technical skills, upskill yourself from open source forums and go ahead and apply for the job.
Thank you, Sherine. The next question we have is by someone who would like to understand the difference between gender equity, gender equality, and women's empowerment.
Women's empowerment. Okay. We always say that equity and equality does not mean the same thing, right? Just because something is 50-50 does not really mean it's going to be the same thing. To me, that's equality. Now, again, different people may have defined it different ways. Or giving someone the opportunity as much as you're giving another person the opportunity does not mean the same thing. By nature, we are designed differently, and different people need to have different opportunities available, different flexibilities available, different measures available to attain equity, in the sense that equity. And so let me put it this way. When we talk about women and their career, and let's say people are married, right? Men usually don't have to go through the 9 months of pregnancy, right? I mean, we know that women go through that pregnancy, and then there's a 6 months maternity break, which again, women go through, men don't. So that's a very different, I would say, a different lifestyle, a different, that's just how nature is. So if we are going to give men and women exactly the same thing in this regard, of course, parenting is the man's job as well, but the 9 months of pregnancy is the woman's ownership at the end of the day. It takes a toll on her health, on her physical well-being, etc. So we have to be more cognizant of that and see how can we will differentiate at that point in terms of how we see some of these things need to play out. And to me, that's basically bringing in the whole concept of equity into the mix, where you are not being equal, you're actually being unequal, but at the same time, you're bringing everything at par. You're bringing parity. That's important. Empowerment of women. Now, empowerment, again, it's about giving everybody the voice to speak, stand their ground, speak their mind, right? Everyone an opportunity to do that. Sometimes empowerment doesn't come by, nobody can come and serve it to you on a platter and say you're empowered henceforth, then please go and make your point out there. Empowerment is something which you have to believe in yourself and take it out from the world. You have to have the confidence and the courage to speak your mind and stand your ground. Organizations can encourage you to do it. Your parents can encourage you to do it. Your spouses can. The world around you can encourage you to do it. But ultimately, empowerment is something you have to feel from within, to be able to speak your mind and put your perspectives out there. Nobody can teach you empowerment. Nobody can come and serve it to you on a platter. I do keep hearing this dialogue a lot of times. We need to empower people. We need to give them that opportunity. We're not necessarily putting anyone on a pedestal, but we need to give everyone the opportunity to speak. But then speaking is then your responsibility. So that's how I put it.
Thank you. The next attendee would like to understand what strategies can women employ to navigate workplace conflicts or challenges assertively while maintaining their self-esteem and confidence.
What steps can they take to navigate challenges? Is that what you're...
What steps can women employ to navigate workplace conflicts or challenges assertively without, losing their self-esteem or confidence?
Okay, right. So the best way to navigate any of these things, any of the workplace conflict, and you will see several of workplace conflicts come up. And by the way, that's true for men also. That's not a women-centric issue. But yeah, women are perhaps more at the receiving end of microaggressions and biases. So clearly it's compounded, a lot more compounded for women. I would say the best way to do this is to keep an open and honest line of communication, fact-based, data-based, and to approach the entire problem logically and factually. We tend to sometimes get into problems without laying the whole course, and not everyone's going to be patient enough to ask you to, can you just explain this? Can you just add more color to this? Can you flesh this out for me? So if you decide to take up something which is concerning you, bothering you, and you think this is conflict, my strong recommendation is to not act in the moment, which is impulsively. Gather your data points, structure your thought process, approach it logically and factually, right? Go have a conversation with someone. And that could be a completely, again, some of the points you want to make could be emotional in nature, and that's perfectly all right. No two ways about it, right? But just approach it logically, factually. So take some time to prepare. If this is the first time you're dealing with a conflict, if you've dealt with multiple conflicts in the past, you probably don't need to have that level of preparation. But if you're approaching it for the first time, maintain an open, honest line of communication. Speak with conviction. In 99% of the instances, if you're willing to say what you believe with conviction, the other party will hear it and do something about it. Don't lose your confidence in the process. So I think self-esteem and confidence, you tend to think that all of it will get impacted if you don't get a positive response from the other side, if the other side is not listening to what you're saying or not acting on the basis of what you're saying. Now, always remember that every problem statement can be viewed through multiple lenses. So be open when you're getting into that conversation. You have a certain point of view. You have put your facts in place. You're approaching it logically. The other side may have a very different point of view, right? And might tell you something. So my recommendation will be open to what they're telling you. Be receptive to what they're telling you. Sometimes it might be a perspective you've not looked at, and that might resolve the tension. But if you think that that perspective is meaningless, then just say it as it is. Because believe me, if you are working in an organization where you have to fear retaliation just because you've spoken your mind or told the organization how you believe about things, that probably then is not the right place for you to be in. Just because you fear retaliation, which will impact your confidence and your self-esteem, you choose not to speak is also not the right thing to do. We are, again, most organizations have an anti-retaliation policy and so on and so forth. But that said, let's be real, things happen, retaliation happens. And if that happens, that should not stop you from saying what you have to say anyway. Escalate up the chains if that is needed. But always remember, you're doing the right thing. And retaliation is a no-go zone. So if you believe that's happening, make sure you're raising it to your higher-ups. And look, if everything fails, then walk out. That organization doesn't deserve your talent. That's what I would say.
Lovely. Somebody would like you to share stories of successful women like you who've overcome challenges to reach their career aspirations. Have you, Sherine, drawn inspiration from anyone's experience that has guided you in your own journey?
Well, you know what? Again, I'm not going to take celebrities and all that. I mean, there are a lot that's available in social media, so I don't have to really get into that space. But, I have observed a lot of managing directors in organizations like Accenture, etc. Now, Accenture CEO is a woman, and organizations like that actually have a lot of women in the leadership. And I've spent a fair amount of time in Accenture, in consulting firms like Fair Isaac in the past. And, what I've generally observed with a lot of these women is they're always, and consider this, we are talking about women who have been my inspiration in my professional journey, who are at least 15 years older than me, we're talking about a generation where none of this is explicitly spoken about. Unconscious bias is not spoken about. Equity and equality is not spoken about. So women empowerment is a taboo, and women can't have it all is the perception. In that day and age, a lot of women have actually made it to the top and have become managing directors, chief executive officers. So I know examples of a lot of women who I have worked with very closely, who've inspired me in my journey. The common themes emerging out of all of those women in terms of with respect to their stories is they have defied the norms to a great extent. And when I say they've defied the norms, they have refused to be bogged down by stereotypes. They've refused to be bogged down by a lot of narratives that are floated around women's success at the time, because a woman's not just successful by virtue of her talent. There are a lot of externalities that lead to her success, was a common theme and perception floating at the time. But they have managed to overlook all of it. And it was actually one woman who told me, be a judge of your own talent and your own character. If you go and seek validation from the external world for your talent and your potential, more often than not, you'll be disappointed. Not because you don't possess it, because people wouldn't want to see success. There is nothing that causes a human more happiness than another person's downfall, especially if that person is in competition with you. So, and that's the message I want to pass to each of you. I'm not suggesting you revolt, you rebel, but always remember who you are, what you're worth, and stand up for what you believe. You don't have to seek external validation. That's what some of my mentors have told me. Believe in what you do and go ahead with it. Struggles are part of everyone's career. We were a lot worse 25 years ago, and yet we have women today who are heading organizations. Imagine we're in a much, much better position today. So make use of that is what I would tell you.
Okay, then we have a question that's specific to Synchrony. Somebody would like to know if there are any virtual internship opportunities at your organization for final year non-tech students in the field of data analytics.
Virtual internship opportunities. Okay, I wish my HR Asia head was on this call, Kameshwari, but to address that pretty categorically. But that said, we do have internship opportunities for sure. And because the question was virtual, let me also tell you that Synchrony has a permanent work from home. That was our pursuit to provide full flexibility to people. We're also moving effective 1st of October for most part of the business to flexible working times, in the sense that we're saying your meeting hours are going to be within a 6-hour window. Before that, after that, it's entirely your choice in terms of what timing you want to pursue. We're doing this in phases, because we've never really done. We're moving away from the concept of shift to flexible work hours. But because there was this question about virtual internship, yes, it's all going to be virtual. Well, virtual in the sense that you don't have to be in the office. Let me put it that way. So you can work from home. That applies to everybody, our interns too. But that said, 6 months internship, campus programs, several of them are in the remit, which Synchrony is going in for. In terms of the specific timing of some of those programs and the colleges that we're going to tap into for this, or the off-campus procedures, I'll definitely have, in fact, I'd encourage you to have a conversation with our HR business partner, Kameshwari, or our recruitment head, Kameshwari, or our campus person. I can leave in the contacts on the chat. So feel free to get in touch with them for the exact set of opportunities. We should also have them published on our Synchrony website. So at a high level, yes, opportunities are available. You need to figure, and it's virtual in nature, and it is for grads, and it is internship. You just have to figure out whether the qualifications fit the roles that are available today.
Okay, so we have time for just a couple more quick questions. So very quickly, somebody would like to know, pay parity surely is a concern even in top-notch product firms. All budgets are pre-decided with experience. How do we crack better offers with no prejudice?
Pay parity should have nothing to do with budgets, right? They shouldn't be correlated. I mean, if you can pay a man X, you shouldn't have to pay a woman 0.8 of X, right? You should still we pay for the job. At Synchrony and in every other organization that I have been part of, at least I've advocated that we pay for the job. It is not paid for the job and gender. Right. So long as you have that clarity in your mind, I think we should all aim for and target for what we believe is the right set of compensation that we deserve for our jobs. So it's when you talk about how do we crack the right compensation, I think you need to have a reasonable understanding. Okay, whatever you earn today, right? Ask the organization about, if you have to ask them tough questions. Can you define your compensation range to me? Or what's the median of your compensation range? I think as an external candidate, you're well within your rights to understand some of these details. And if the organization's not willing to share that information, then you should have a reasonable view of what you believe you deserve based on, just go to Glassdoors of the world and they will tell you exactly what kind of compensations people earn. So a little bit of an external research will get you to the right place with respect to negotiation power, and explain to them why you think you deserve what you deserve. With these many years of experience, I think I'm ahead of the runway. So I should be paid above the median of what you pay within your organization for this particular role because my runway is X. Now, if someone's at the beginning of the runway of that particular role, like I'm a fresher and I have to start from alpha, then clearly going and asking for median of that range may not be sensible. You may want to be in the first quartile of that range. So be smart about where you think you are with respect to the runway that you have in that particular role. Again, I'd encourage each of you to, because, when you go to the HR partners and tell them and have conversations in these dialogues and you put these facts on the table, more often than not, they'll understand that you're not someone who can be undersold. Right? So be absolutely clear in your mind in terms of what you think you deserve, where you stand with respect to the runway for that role. And therefore, you need to go tell them, if you're not willing to share the range with me, you got to make sure that I'm above the median because my runway is clearly less than the median in this instance. So there's less that I need to learn to be on the job. And therefore, I deserve more than, the median on the compensation. That's one way to kind of navigate this. Go to Glassdoor, go to Ambition Box. You'll have data on compensations across levels, across organizations. Do some research with respect to, speak to your colleagues if you've been ever in the industry, or speak to someone who is in the industry. And at least 10% of them will respond. So you will get some data points to navigate that conversation. But always remember, people pay for the job, not for the gender and the job.
Great. So one last.
Shonali, I think I lost you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So we have someone who's a finance professional transitioning into AI and ChatGPT related fields, focusing on data analytics and automation. She'd like to understand, can I switch careers successfully despite my lack of experience? If my manager doesn't plan promotions and higher ups create problem, is changing jobs my only option, which I don't consider a wise decision?
Okay, so first question first, which is, you're a finance professional with an interest in AI and ChatGPT and analytics per se. Can I switch my job? I don't know how many years of experience you have, but I can tell you, yes, you absolutely can. The chief credit officer in finance and my super boss actually chief credit officer in Synchrony and my super boss actually was in the finance field for 20 odd years before he made a switch into credit and a lot of the analytical work and data-driven work that we do. So even at that level, a switch is possible. So, it's absolutely possible to make the switch. Now to your second question, which is, can I just add one more point to the first question? But always be conscious of one thing. You may be an ace, a pro in finance. You may have a higher learning curve when you're switching fields. So be conscious of that too. Just because you've been a professional, an absolute top of the end potential within finance does not necessarily mean that all of that would translate at inception into the other journey. So you will have to be patient and give yourself some time to make that progress in the alternate field. Now, to your second question, if things are not working out, is changing jobs my only option, which I don't believe is a wise decision. Now, again, I'm not aware of the composition of your organization, but I'm assuming that wherever you're working, you are interacting with a certain vertical, a certain set of people. The organization's much wider and bigger than that, right? So you may want to determine if there are opportunities outside of your immediate area of work that you can work in, which is within finance, because finance also has several streams to it, right? So is that a possibility? Explore that option. How much of a connect do you have with your super boss or super boss's boss, right? So build relationships. That's extremely important as you navigate your career journey, because building relationships will give you a good purview to the kind of opportunities that exist. And the recall value of your talent is going to be a lot higher for people to recognize you and to give you the job. So always remember that networking is important, whether you're in the industry or outside of the industry. A lot of networking and awareness about who you are, what you're doing, what opportunities exist helps you navigate a lot of these things better. And you don't have to take the extreme measure of leaving the organization per se. So I would recommend you figure out, firstly, hopefully you've networked enough. If not, you can start that process effective today and determine what other options exist in finance within your organization. Look, at the end of the day, it may not also be a bad idea to explore opportunities outside of your organization, because it's only then that you also begin to understand and also start appreciating some of the behaviors that you believe are, sometimes you believe that someone's being unfair on you, is being very aggressive on you. But with alternate perspectives, you learn to realize that there's a different style of working that everyone brings to the table, right? And you build that appreciation for that too, which is why diversity of perspective is so important, which is why women in workforce is so important. So sorry if it's a convoluted answer, but again, just to cut it short, explore what other options exist in finance. Also explore what exists in the industry. Give yourself time. Don't get very judgmental about, is this good or bad? We don't have to make anything black and white. We can be shades of gray where we operate. So, and only enough experience, enough network, enough exposure is going to give you that ability to differentiate. So that's what I'd encourage you to do.
Thank you, Sherine. Thanks a lot. And with that, we come to the close of our keynote address. Thank you for a very motivating start to the morning, Sherine. It was lovely having you here, and I'm sure you've left a lot of women with renewed perspective. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please hang on. We are going to have the next session starting shortly, a panel discussion with a very esteemed set of panelists. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sherine.